Hi everyone, Sandy from Hobby Headquarters, and today we're going to be doing a new and exciting project. This is the new 1/35th scale King Tiger from Takom. This is a little bit different than some of the other kits that we've built recently. This one has a complete interior. This one has the complete insides of all the turret, fighting compartment, the engine, transmission, everything you could think of in a real Tiger is going to be inside this kit. So it's going to be probably broken into two videos because it's quite a bit. We'll do the first video, which you'll be watching right now. This one will be the entire lower hull, building the insides, things like that, painting the insides as well. And then the next one will probably be like the turret and then the outer surfaces of the body. So I'm really excited about this kit. It'll be out in the United States probably, I'd say in about 2 or 3 weeks at the time that I'm filming this right now, maybe a little less by the time you see this. It looks like it's a beautiful kit. I've been looking over all the different parts and sprues. Wonderful looking, which I will actually show you in a few minutes, all the sprues going into this because it is a new kit. So let's get started on it. Okay, to start off, I'm going to show you the individual parts of this kit because it is a brand new kit and something completely different, having the full interior from them. To start off with, you'll notice that the zimmerit looks really nice. It's got a hand-applied appearance to it. It isn't really perfect or anything like the real stuff should be. You'll also notice that King Tigers had multiple different types of tracks. They had a track that was similar to like the Tiger track where it was just one track used over and over again. Then there's the track that I'll call AB, where it had an A section and a B section, which is what comes in this kit. And then there's some other tracks that had up to like 6 parts per track on it to hook two together, which I'm glad they didn't give you those type because those are a real pain to put together. But what we'll do is we'll just look at the rest of the parts going forward on this kit before we start building it, just to show you what's involved between the shells, the engine, all the other different parts. So it looks really nice, and then we'll start building. Okay, as we start off, you'll see that I'll be putting in the bracing for the subfloor on the King Tiger. You'll also notice that there are a decent amount of push pin marks on the bottom, but we didn't worry too much about this because after reading forward, I noticed that would all be completely covered over with the subfloor, or excuse me, the floor itself, so I wasn't too worried about that. As we proceed here, you'll notice that the sides of the interior are molded as one big piece, have very nice detail to them, and went in beautifully, snapped right into place. As long as you keep your bracing for the subfloor straight, both sides popped right in. One other thing, I'm going to take a break from building for a second because I spread out all of the kits all over the table. This is something that you're going to need a lot of area and size to work on that, and luckily I do because I have the entire front of my store here. The one main thing is when you're building individual parts of this kit, there'll be parts off of this sprue, that sprue, that sprue, that sprue, that sprue. It's all over the place. So it's really helpful to line them all up with the numbers showing real easily. So when you need 2 parts off of one sprue and 1 part off another sprue and a 3rd part off of a 3rd sprue, you can find them easily because it can get kind of frustrating if you leave them all just piled up in the box. Another thing that I appreciate is they've given you a complete color guide. 2 pages, but it shows the entire model built up inside, what the colors will look like. Because sometimes you're looking at a little bit of a chart that it's kind of hard to read, whereas this is color, and Mig Jimenez did all this for them, did a really nice job, and I'm going to use this as a reference as I go forward. Okay, as we proceed to start doing the other steps, the first thing they want us to do is glue on the front with the zimmerit on it. So that one we will go ahead and do. I've also gone ahead and assembled the drive sprockets here, and the step required wants you to put them into place. I would recommend not doing this right now, and the reason so is, especially with individual tracks, just having them tweak just the smallest little bit can help you get a track on much easier down the road. So for now, they want you to put them on. I would just leave them in the side. We'll put them on later on. Now the next step after that is they want us to start building the torsion bars. And there's an A and B torsion bar, you know, they interlace back and forth. So I've started building the torsion bars. There's a lot of cleanup on them. There's actually like 6 connection points per unit. And there's only 2 parts to it, but you want to get it nice and smooth. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and painted the inside of the torsion bar, this portion, black obviously. And the next portion tells you of the instructions to go ahead and install these. Well, if you install them, it's going to make painting very difficult. So what I've done is I've just gone ahead and painted them all on another sprue over there, box, and we're going to leave those out until we get further down the line, because this will just slide right into place. In fact, I can even just show you one of them right here. They'll just slide, getting them to go in the right direction here. Do it this way, and it'll just slide right into place. And I still have to paint the bottoms of these. I just put 1 coat on, but I wanted to just advise, looking forward in the instructions, I wouldn't go ahead and start attaching those yet. I just think it's going to cause problems for you in painting down the road. Okay, as we start to put some of the front pieces into the driver's compartment, make a little note here. If you were watching earlier, I actually glued this suspension arm that goes through the front torsion bar in backwards. So luckily I didn't put a lot of glue on it, and I was able to get it back in there going the right way. Didn't notice it until I was dry fitting some of these pieces and realized, oh, I put that in backwards. So like I said, keep an eye out going forward on that. These little fiddly pieces are going to be kind of fun to try to get in there because they're kind of hard to grip. And as we start to put the rest of these parts in too, another little thing you might run into, these pieces all fit perfectly fine once you clear. That just snaps into place. It's this piece back here. It actually had 2 holes here, and then 2 pins on this side, and the pins don't even come close to the actual size that it's supposed to be. So I just cut off one of the pins and hollowed out the other one a little larger, but it'll just still pop right into place. And then this is the little tiny escape hatch for the front. You want to glue on all the parts first, so when you put it in, you'll see the little grab handles and the little wheel as well. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've glued in the seat and a few of the other little parts in there, and I started building some of the sub-assemblies. The transmission housing that also has on top of it the radios. Now what I'm going to do here is we're going to leave the radios off for now because they're getting painted a different color, and there's also a really big seam that I have to take care of and get rid of all this seam that goes all the way around because it's not supposed to be there. And since it's going to be a different color, that way we won't have to worry about the seam on this as much. Up front here we will a little bit, but the rest of this is getting covered by the radio. So I'm going to go ahead and sand all of this down, glue this into place, and then drop this in here. And this way we should be able to put our first couple of coats of the red Oxide Primer inside the fighting compartment here in the drivers and radio man's compartment. And once we get that in, then we'll be able to put the torsion bars back in. Okay, I've mixed up a rather large batch of our red Oxide Primer, and that's a mixture of about 80% red, 10% black, and 10% red brown, and you can adjust it according to the way you think it looks good. This when I actually spray it on, actually looks pretty good. Now I've sprayed the inside of the fighting compartment the white that it needs to be, but I've masked that off. I've also sprayed the firewall as well and some of the other supports. But I'm going to start putting a layer of the red oxide inside there so we can start working on some other pieces. And like I said, I mixed up enough of it so when we go to do the engine compartment and all the other things, we'll have the exact same color. Okay, I'm just going to give you a once-over of what the interior looks like. Now, we've just temporarily slid this firewall into place, and we're going to go ahead and do some detail painting of like the leather on the seats, steering wheel, things like that. Might have to do a little bit more sanding here and there, although, like I said, most of this is covered by the radio, which gets flipped in this way. I still have to take care of that seam on that, but you can start to see how the interior goes together. And it's an amazing thing too. It's kind of hard to describe, but as you hold it, because you put all these extra interior parts in it, just the general feel of the kit feels so unusual compared to a regular kit. It's very, very rigid with all those extra parts and all that extra glue inside there. So it just really feels like it has a lot of substance to it. So I am going to go ahead and start working on the next group of pieces. Like I said, we're not going to glue this in place yet because it still requires a lot of pieces to get glued on and a lot of detailing to do. But I wanted to just kind of show you what it would look like in place. And then a little bit of overspray there, but that's going to be painted body color anyway. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've put all of the torsion bars in, and of course the outer part of the arm that holds the wheel. Had a little bit of problem on one side, and I think it may have been my fault. When you're putting the secondary wall in for the inside, for inside detail, it's funny, the front of it lined up perfectly, but the back was off just a little bit, and it was not letting some of the arms go all the way through. The torsion bars themselves would go in fine. It was just when it came to putting in the arms for that held the road wheel in place, some of it would not snap in, so I had to like sand it out a little bit to get them to pop in. The other side was fine, so it was probably my error not lining it up 100% on there. I mean, it was just off just slightly, and the front actually went in fine. Just this portion right here had a little bit of a problem, but that'll give you an idea of what it's looking like with the torsion bars. And now these are those panels. None of this has been glued in. I just painted that and just dry fitted it into place here. See how it's going to look, so we can start doing some more of the detail work on it. Okay, and like all Tiger kits, they're going to have lots and lots of road wheels. Now these I've just cut off the sprue. Haven't sanded or anything done yet, but you'll notice that they actually those two are the same wheel. There's two different types of wheel you need to build up, and if you notice right here, they'll actually just click together without any glue, which will make sanding a little bit easier too, because I like to sand 2 road wheels at a time, so half the work at least, because if you're going to be doing it. And we go over it with just our regular sanding, and then with our sanding block, which is the foam insert, that way you won't get any flat spot on it when you do the final bit of it. So like I said, there's 2 different types of road wheel, and they're mainly by this little nib that sticks out right here. So make sure you keep them separate in piles, so when you go to put it on the actual vehicle, you won't get them in the wrong direction. Okay, I spent the last hour or so sanding up just one side of the road wheels here, so we'll put them on in the order they're supposed to go. This little nub is supposed to go downward too, so you want to keep an eye on that. That'll get the right spacing apart. And then we'll go ahead and glue this little piece in here and this little outer cap on here, and that'll keep all the road wheels intact. Okay, as we start to assemble more and more of the little parts, I decided that I'm going to start painting them as sub-assemblies and then attaching them to the actual vehicle. This will make it a little bit easier as we go forward with painting. So what we'll start to do is, like, this is going to be the drive shaft, and what we'll do on this is we'll build up the drive shaft as it needs to be put together, and we'll start putting all these little sub-assemblies on the paint table and start painting all those up at once. So you can see how the drive shaft starts to go together. Glue that in there, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, this is the next group of parts that we're going to paint the interior red. We have the drive shaft assembly, the back of the firewall, which we painted white on the other side, as well as these are the sides of the engine housing. So we're going to go ahead and paint all of those the interior red right now. Okay, we've gone ahead and glued the transmission into place. Also painted the radios a German gray color and put those in place there. We'll do all the decaling and touch up in a little while on it. The next thing I want to talk to you about is putting in the walls in the back here for the engine. I would not advise just to glue them in until you've actually gone ahead and dry fit them in place and then put the return idler or the idler wheel sprocket into place first, just to see how it's going to line up, because it's slightly off skew if you don't do it that way. So now that it's in there, we can go ahead and glue this piece into place, and we know that we won't have a problem putting these in later on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part right now. Okay, as we start to assemble the block of the engine, there's one little thing I'll point out to you, that if you follow the instructions, it says glue both halves of the engine together. And now there are no locator pins anywhere on this piece. And if you would think that you would just glue the two halves together perfectly like that, flush, you'd be wrong, because actually they have to be offset. And you can see up in the instructions that I've included right now to show you that. So to get the right angle, what we're going to do is we're going to actually skip one step ahead, and you can see this little piece right here that goes on the front has this step already built into it. So we're going to go ahead and, if I can hold all three pieces without glue yet, we're going to go ahead and glue those pieces together like that before making the second step, so we get the right offset on it, so the engine is going to line up later on. So let's go ahead and do that right now. The engine itself is turning out to be a kit by itself there. It's so many parts for it. Lots of little parts, and they've given you lots and lots of detail. Unfortunately, lots of it gets covered up by other pieces. So this is going to go right in through there. But the engine is going to look pretty nice, I would say, after we're done with it. And I've gone back and I've filed some of the sanded down some of the areas down there that had a little bit of a parting line that I didn't notice first off. And that's going to drop right into place right there. Well, I'm starting to assemble the exhaust. I did notice that I had glued this on upside down, so I did catch it in time and flip it. And we'll sand it out later on. Okay, I've gone ahead and finished plumbing up the engine on this vehicle. We painted it just the German gray, and then used the red oxide on the piping in here. Now I also used the red oxide color on the tailpipes here, because we're going to go ahead and put a little coat of the desert dust on it, followed by a little burnt sienna to give it a kind of a rusty look to it. So we'll go over this whole piece, get them nice and rusted up a little, and then after this we're going to drop this we'll finish that up in a second there. But this was just going to drop right into the back. We'll finish doing up some of the plumbing, and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, let's see if we can get this engine in here. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've kind of only attached some of this piping really loosely, so it's still got a lot of flex to it, because we have to hook all this piping up to the inside of the walls in there as well. And almost forgot about this too, we also have our top that'll get glued right into place there as well. So now, although it's not glued in yet, but that'll give you an idea, the whole engine pack built into it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up plumbing up the inside of there, and we'll take you on to the next step. Okay, we're using our painting table a lot today. There's a couple more parts that need to be painted the red oxide, and then we also have some other parts that are going to get painted black and a little bit of red oxide. Just these are all the piping that are going to make the finish off the back. So I'm going to paint up this red part first, and then we'll do the black. Okay, we've gone back to the painting table yet one more time to paint up the radiators and the fuel tanks, which we will pop into place right now. Get the right one for it. Actually, that one's going to go right here. And then this other radiator will go right in like that. And the whoops, sorry about that. And then the final fuel tank will go right in here. So that will complete up most of the back end of this here. There is still a little more plumbing that I have to paint up and do. You can also see that it goes down into the all the other engine parts as well. It's kind of a shame we spent all that time wiring and plumbing up the inside of the engine. Not much of it can be seen, but there's enough parts in there. I think we could almost start this thing up and get it to run. So I'm going to finish putting some glue on that, and then we'll be back in a minute to go on to the next step. I've gone ahead and I started gluing in the floorboards and this tank right here that will pop right into place here. I found that I had this glued all together as one, but it makes it a little bit more difficult to get in that way. So we broke it apart and we'll pop it back in now that the bottom's in, and then we'll put a little glue on it, and you can see how that'll all line up inside there. I've gone ahead and I've finished plumbing up the engine, doing the painting of the little fasteners that go along. Also, we did all the fuel lines that go underneath there as well. I'm gonna kind of give you a once over of the entire vehicle. Like I told you, we've put the floor in. We'll have to do some more detail painting on the back firewall and this emergency kit and the ammunition boxes that are right there. But we'll do that later on. Give you a once over on that. Overall, my thoughts on the kit. So far, most things have gone together pretty well. The fit has been pretty tight on a few things. One problem, anytime that there was any holes with a peg that'll fit inside of it, I noticed that those would never line up properly. The holes were usually way too small for the peg, so you either had to cut the pegs off or completely round out the hole a little bit larger. But that's a minor thing. There's a lot of parts, as you can see on here, and unfortunately, as you build all these parts, they get hidden by the last. But as you've watched me build the entire kit, you can see that the entire engine is inside of there, the transmission, everything. In fact, it seems kind of a shame to go ahead and seal this up. In fact, I might try to figure out some way that we can make it that the top comes off all the time so we can actually see all the interior on this. Now there is, like I said, a little bit more detail painting. We also have the ammunition racks that'll go inside here. But I think this is going to be a good stopping point for this first set of videos. We'll get this off and then we'll start do a little more detailing on this and then start working on the turret and the upper part of the hull. So as usual, I appreciate you watching and please stay tuned because the next video will be out soon.